Flensburger Dunkel.
And remember, life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. I've got another one here from the Flensburger Brewery, and it is their Flensburger Dunkel, which is obviously a dark lager. Now, I've just tried the Flensburger Winterbock, and that was really good. In fact, it was better than good, it was outstanding. And I gave that a 10 out of 10 because it was a really good Winterbock. This one I bought from Noble Green at the same time because I saw the two together, and I just thought, I couldn't decide which one. I just thought, why am I trying to decide? I'll get the two of them together. And I like what this brewery do. There was only one beer from them that I don't think was an absolutely outstanding beer, and that was the Flensburger Gold. And I just thought, I tried them sort of back to back, the Pilsner and the Pilsner for me was nicer. But they're typical North German brewery. They're from Flensburg, obviously. Schleswig-Holstein, near the border with Denmark, in northern Germany. The Pils they produce is, I think it's their flagship beer. That is a typical North German Pilsner, dry, spicy, and very, very drinkable, and very refreshing too. And I think that and the Jaeger are probably the two most North German characteristic Pilsners that you can get. There's bound to be others, but they're the two that really stick out for me. And I picked this up, and I've got very high hopes for it because, as I say, Flensburger just can't do anything wrong at the moment in my eyes. They're very, very good. But they've been going since 1888, and they've got a long tradition of brewing. If you look at the Flensburger Winterbock, I will give you a better history of the brewery, and you know, it goes into more detail about it. I don't want to keep labouring the sort of history of breweries, but I'll give you a few little sort of nuggets of info about them that I didn't mention in the other one. Obviously, coming from Schleswig-Holstein, it gets very cold in winter, and what they used to do, parts of the rivers and the sea around there used to freeze up, and they'd take big blocks of ice and they would put them in their cellars, use them to cool the beer. And they did that for a while until, you know, they got electronic refrigeration and modernised the brewery. They've got the ingredients spot on. They use local malt, or coastal malt they call it, which is from the farms around Schleswig-Holstein. Coastal malt, of course, relates to the maritime heritage of the Flensburg region. Hence the ship on the front of the bottle. Can you see that now? Yeah, they do sort of pay homage to that, and they use fresh well water, which comes from a Scandinavian iron. Is it Ice Age? I think it's Ice Age. There's a drift that they've tapped into, and it's producing 100% natural spring water, which they use for their brewing, and that again enhances the flavour. Certainly for German beers, you know, where you take the Burtonisation of water in British beers, you know, with high sulphur content, the Germans don't do that. They make a big point of using, well, not all German brewers, not the Goes brewers who use, you know, salt water, slightly salted water, but most of the Bavarian brewers and a lot of the North German brewers and other brewers around the country, they all use 100% spring water, which is, again, it has got a slight chemical, or I say mineral content, but it's nothing like the sort of Burton stuff, which is, you know, just full of the sulphur, which enhances the flavour. Anyway, let's fucking not go off topic. Let's get this beer open. Let's see what's going on. Right, 4.8%. It is a 330ml bottle, and it is a Dunkel lager, of course, bottom fermented, caramel malt that's in there, or roasted malt that gives it a darker colour. And Dunkel Weissbier Dunkel Lager, I have to say, does have and for me anyway, being a fan of British beer, it's got a nicer flavour because it's got slightly more caramel malt in it from the sort of caramel or the roasted malt that's put in there. And it tends to be a lot sweeter as well. I wouldn't say a lot sweeter, but sweeter. And they've used, if you look on the front of the bottle, they've got a word there, Feinherb und frisch. Feinherb is a German word for, well, it's a wine term that the Germans use for slightly sweeter wine. Now, why the fuck they've used a wine term for a beer, I don't know. I'd imagine the French would do that quite a lot, but not the Germans. There's no need.
Men don't order wine, all right?
You're drinking beer, not wine. Why do it? But they put it on there, Feinherb und frisch, which means sweet and fresh, which to me sounds good. So let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. The famous flip top bottle from Flensburger that they make a big thing about, the plop that the that the lid makes. You know, if you've got a 5-year-old toilet humour mentality like me, plop means something completely different. I won't go into it here, but those that know will know. Let's get it in the glass. See if I can get a bit of a head on it. Now, it's only 330ml, so it's not really going to fill this glass. Well, I'm saying that. Size of that bloody head. What are we getting on the nose? Oh, well, now that's interesting because there is a sweetness there, but there's also some of them bitter German hops, the spicy, bitter North German hops, I should say. They use they use hops from the Hallertau region. I wouldn't say that they use Hallertau hops, you know, the type they use in Bavarian beers, but they're from the Hallertau region in Bavaria, which is, of course, the largest hop growing region in the world. Oh, it smells really good. It's a nice balance of spicy and earthy hops, noble hops, with a little touch of caramel malt. And that sweetness just sort of comes through and balances it all out. And I have to say, it does look nice. That is a sort of a chestnut. Is it chestnut? No, it's a very dark amber, I'd say that is. Looks nice, smells nice. Let's see what it tastes like. Zum Wohl, as they say in Germany. Oh, yeah, that's lovely. Very characteristic. Now, what I mean by that is it's got the sweet caramel malt, or sweeter caramel malt, but there's been a lid put on that, and it's them spicy, earthy hops that have given it a bitterness to it, which balances that sweetness out. I can see what the malts are trying to do in this, and if you do try a Bavarian Dunkel, they're a lot sweeter. The North Germans tend to have drier and spicier finishes on their beers, and this is definitely one of them. That's nice, and that's different. I have to say, I do prefer the Bavarian Dunkels because they haven't got that as spicy finish on it. With the Bavarian stuff, I tend to find it's all about the malt. The North Germans, they tend to put some emphasis on the hops, as I keep saying, and you get that in this beer. But I have to say, it just tastes amazing. Different, but amazing. And it's definitely German. You can definitely get that German characteristic in there. And, you know, if you put a Bavarian Dunkel and a North German Dunkel like this, say, for example, I had a Paulaner Dunkel next to this, you would taste the difference. It would be like chalk and cheese. You'd have a lot more sweetness and sort of bready malt coming through. The hops would be very light on the Bavarian stuff, and it would overall be sweeter. This, you do get the sweetness, but it's balanced, and it's balanced with an earthy, peppery style bitterness. But the two, in my eyes, are very nice, very drinkable, but personally I prefer the Bavarian stuff. So there you go. But this is still a really good beer. So what's the verdict on Flensburger Dunkel? It's really good, I have to say. I love that it's got that stamp of North Germany on it with them hops. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. The reason I'm not going to give it 10 out of 10 is I think I prefer the Bavarian Dunkels. They just have got that lovely malty sweetness to them that I prefer. But I will say about this, there is a price that you will pay for this, and it has, wow, £1.75. That cost me £1.75 for 330ml. Now, that's come from Germany. And you will buy craft brewed Dunkel beers, or dark lagers as they call them, and they will not be as good as that, and you will pay a lot more for it. And I just think, I'm not, again, I made this point in the Winterbock, the Flensburger Winterbock. I'm not trying to, knock British craft brewers. I'm not trying to knock these British brewers that copy German styles, but in many cases you can buy the original for less money. Now, I'm all for trying new beers, that's what I do, I review beers, but I'm always wary about the cost, and I'm not happy about paying excessive amounts for beer that, in my opinion, you can get cheaper from the source. And of course Germany is the source for Dunkels, as some craft brewers like to call them. But for me, this is a 9 out of 10. I'd definitely recommend it though. I mean, it sounds like I'm knocking it, comparing it to the Bavarian stuff, but this is definitely a good beer. It's a 9 out of 10 from me. It costs £1.75. You will not go wrong with that for £1.75. So get some. And remember, beer is working class champagne.